All right, I think we've got it. Yes.
Okay.
Great. All right. Hello, everyone. I think we can go ahead and get started. I guess I'm just holding this mic for right now, but eventually I'll set it down. Who knows? Welcome to In Review. This exhibition and the one upstairs we're going to be looking at today. Taking a closer look at the program that we do here at Da Vinci Art Alliance and having a discussion, giving constructive feedback, not just for individual artworks or even the works of a single artist, but really looking at the exhibition program as a whole, because this is a community-run gallery. And so we all are kind of stakeholders in this weird, crazy process that we do here just about every month. And so we invite our community members, our stakeholders, our neighbors, our friends and members all in here. And we just have a really kind of informal conversation about the shows that we're checking out here. And sometimes as well as the resident who's up on the third floor, but we don't have that this month. So we'll be just talking about the two exhibitions. So welcome. My name is Bryant. I'm one of the co-directors here. We got a lot of other Da Vinci folks behind the camera here. As well, a lot of folks who are in here live in person in the gallery with me, as well as online. Hello, online folks. If you are online and you would love to give us your feedback, we'd love to have it. You can either enter that in chat and we can get to that ASAP, or otherwise unmute yourself and we'll try to hear for you for your voice coming through. So you have those two options. Otherwise, we'll just be having this conversation here. And I guess we can first get started with collective awareness, this members exhibition that we're all in right now. So I guess I can, oh yeah, by the way, this mic picks up pretty much everything within like 10 feet of us. So if you happen to run down there and wanted to communicate something to the group, come on a little bit closer. We'll keep it a little tight. But yeah, so this is a members exhibition, and that means that it is a group show that is featuring only Da Vinci Art Alliance members. And so what we've done this year is we have slightly changed the system of how we do member shows, in which we invite a lot of our members to tell us what they've been working on and submit that to a large kind of catalog of artwork that all of us here on staff have access to seeing. And then from that, we curate shows, and then we make sure that we curate everyone into at least one show a year, but in reality, it's probably more like 2 or 3. And so we've had a really wonderful time with that process so that we can kind of more structurally conceive of exhibitions that are a little bit more thematic, a little bit more focused, and allow for larger and more kind of unconventional artworks to find their way in this space. Otherwise, we'd have to like mandate very strict size requirements that gets very old, especially if you're an artist where that doesn't really make sense for you. So we have this new process that we started this year. And so that's something that's always kind of thinking in the back of our mind, as well as looking at this exhibition as a group of really talented artists that are working here in Philadelphia in a very diverse set of practices, but all kind of coming together as this one community collective here, kind of. Anything to add, folks? Excellent. So I guess I will probably stop talking for a bit so that we can have a more of a open-ended conversation about anything that kind of strikes your fancy, whether that's our folks online or in here in person, and any initial thoughts about the exhibition as we've kind of been sitting with it for a while now, things that stand out to folks more than others.
Like what is coming up for everyone else when they're looking at this space? Because I know that there was like really clear ideas that I was thinking of when we were curating it. So I'm wondering if that also translates like in the execution, like what you're all experiencing sitting here or viewing it from home and maybe formally seeing it.
Great job with the installation. And make the pillowcase. I'm just looking across the room at those two abstract pieces that are stacked, and it's really enjoying seeing how they play one against the other. But you find out recurring throughout the gallery, and these two pieces too, as well, the palette and format, of course, all three. Actually, I just haven't turned the car around. They look very nice. Good job. Thanks.
Yeah, with a number of exhibitions that are kind of extensive as this one is, there's a couple different through lines that I think that we were thinking about when selecting artwork for this. Certainly kind of a very colorful abstraction ends up being one of those through lines. If that also has really interesting conversations and dialogues with work that feels nature inspired or landscape inspired kind of in some way. And that really starts to kind of frame out a lot of the work that's in here right now. And certainly some work kind of fit into those two categories, but rather kind of inform everything else by locating them somewhere within a bit of that spectrum. Or at least that's kind of one thing that I was thinking about for a lot of these pieces.
So between like formal, abstract kind of compositions versus more natural.
Well, I think it wasn't necessarily like one or the other or versus in some way, but really kind of thinking about how they actually both have a lot to do with each other. And some are definitely a little bit more hard edge or something, but maybe there's like a color that's really anchored in like Bennett Lorbert's pieces up there that really has a lot to do with a very similar blue that might be happening in Robert's painting right here. And those two can have a conversation because they are, kind of spatially near each other. And that color, for me is that tie-in to really relate the two, even though I would never call Robert's hard edge painting, and I would never call Bennett's some sort of kind of like cerebral kind of narrative space. Sure, we get this camera. All right. Oh, and also let us know if you can't hear us at all, and we'll be able to kind of repeat ourselves for you folks online. Hey, all right. Yeah, well, are there any kind of pieces in here or kind of combinations, other than the ones, Andrea, you kind of pointed out here that folks are really noticing or kind of gravitating towards?
I would actually kind of sticking with what you're talking about, like hear from both Sam and Liv about what you're thinking, you're like hanging these up and kind of the relationships between each
I think going off of what Brian said was really just seeing how like each of the pieces connected to each other and how they were talking and like vibrating with one another. I'm thinking specifically like a good example, like this corner, Sam and I were going back and forth on like pieces, what to put there, and like between like the geometric shapes and like the materials of some of them, and then the less geometric shapes, they kind of just vibrated well together as like pairing. And I think throughout like this whole show, that's kind of how we went like wall by wall, just finding like what spoke to each other, and if something didn't have a connection or like a spark, kind of found a better place for it to sit.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we concentrated on was the work that it was related to in the room itself, but also like as we're traveling through the exhibition, like going on a process of that pathway instead of it just being like wall by wall by wall, and how like that wall fits in with itself.
Yeah.
Like how does the work all together speak to one another? Was really important to us when we were framing everything out. And then some of the stuff changed while we were painting too. So like in the middle room, we originally had yeah. Okay. Gregory or Joffrey. I don't know his name. In my head, it was like Gregory. Joffrey. And Rob Liveback, we had originally had their photos like this. really like the relationship of like this tree to that tree parallel to one another. So that shifted like during hanging. Some of the other like layout, like just kind of like had minor shifting as I was painting the back. This is kind of, I think this is the room that like probably took us the longest to figure out, but like nothing changed. Like when I was hanging it, it just, I think we were just like very clear about where everything played out. Oh, yeah. Well, I was kind of done. Sorry, was there anything I needed to read?
Do it again.
But I think like overall, we knew which room or like which wall everything was going on, just kind of like little adjustments as the hanging process was happening. But I was really excited. I think my curatorial experience with this is different than Brian's, I think, where for me, it felt, so most of this work was made in the past year. There's like a handful of things that are a little older, but most of it is within the past year. And like, I was very depressed when I was curating this. So that's what I was seeing in the show at the time I was curating it was like, and like, not even depression, but everything felt kind of in the middle. Where like no one was like sad or happy when they made it. It just kind of like was like, oh, I'm making it. And that's what I was feeling. And then when I actually installed it, I was like, oh, this is really reflective of joy. But it really felt like a subconscious like unveiling for a lot of the art as I was like looking through the and like picking out everything in a different way than it has in the past. And I don't know if that's like that we're all experiencing like a collective thing that has happened to us over the past 2 years or what, but it did feel like a different form of processing than I've seen in like the curation process in the past.
Well, they are unprecedented times.
Sorry, if you guys could speak a little bit closer to the mic, all my fellows are a bit.
Okay, is there food zone?
This really quick.
Elton Robert. Easy painting to work on because it's beautiful. So I think like this was like, it was very easy for us to be like, big painting, big opening wall, and like this whole room kind of was created because of this. And that was kind of like, I think the two capstones of Gloria's work all the way at the end that you see right when you walk in, and then Robert's really were the like points that as Liz and I were curating it, like where everything was hung, is like each pathway to those two things.
I really enjoyed the small stained glass pieces that are happening throughout the exhibition. Can you talk more about them? There is that
Yeah, it's here. So Anna, through the camera, is now pointed at, who's here today and made the stained glass pieces. So I'll have her answer.
Yeah, what are these little things? What are we looking at here?
Well, they're shapes. I basically wrote this sort of series of little sculptures. I translate shapes from my drawings into glass, and sort of see what happens when they're illuminated. Sort of transform them into these little. It changes the way they're viewed, I guess. I think of them when they're all together, it's almost like an altar. The glass has that sort of connotation of being devotional or associated with that realm. So I don't know if I have anything to say about the like time. I'm curious about if other folks see how they sort of work or time pieces. I think the palette in the room, I feel like there's different
color stories happening, and shape stories too, which I like seeing the glass and relationship there. It's cool.
Well, even within your own pieces, you have this very kind of considered color, thought process happening there. And forgive me, because I know nothing about how one makes stained glass. But are you thinking in terms of like, okay, I have these, 20 pieces of glass and they're all having
This particular kind of
Hi.
color. Oh, hello. Hi. And are you thinking like, yes, I want to use these and then I need to like draw what would then be the kind of outline for this? Or tell me a little bit more about the process, because
Yeah.
I know nothing.
So I work with, so the shapes come from my drawings, but the color, I make those choices about opacity. Like you can see the glass has different levels of transparency, different textures. If at some point, like, I feel like I want to hold them up to the window so you guys can see, even better the differences of the glass really transform in natural light. But I collage with scrap glass, so I collect glass from other stained glass artists mostly. And so I have sort of piles of small pieces and then I work intuitively to sort of build them that way.
Cool. And I love how present like drawing feels in them, which is something that I wouldn't expect in such a kind of involved sculptural process, that drawing is like the key here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just tracing with my lines. It just feels so pencil-y.
Yeah.
It's just really, really nice.
And sculptures in the show, like really kind of ground everything. It's kind of insane that this was just like a bunch of different artists. You know what I mean? Like it just feels so purposeful. Like it feels like everyone kind of was like, oh, we're gonna do this show together. And sculptures put together, they like really, it almost creates like these like pockets within the exhibition that are really like.
Yeah, there's some really wonderful moments. Even I'm looking at, in his piece there next to Gobi's painting above it. I feel like those are from the same universe. And that's just like a really kind of special moment.
Yeah, Liz chose the placement for all of the sculptures and they did, in my opinion, a very good job.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pieces of the show that I'm really excited about because they're like works or from bodies of work that we haven't been able to see here in the exhibition or in the gallery kind of yet. So even thinking about like Gobi's piece there, I haven't seen a like medium to large scale Gobi piece ever in person, and now we have one, and I'm like really pumped about it.
Well,
And-
also Krista is on the same wall. So Krista does a lot of like really like vivid color paintings that are very abstract a lot of the time. And for this exhibition, she chose a piece from one of her new bodies of work that's like on a shirt, like a painting on a shirt. And I was talking to her at the opening, and it's like a body that she just started working on and she's very excited about and is like really experimenting with it and wants feedback. So she was excited to have it here so she could like have more conversations with more people about it.
Yeah, that's another really kind of strong piece that'll grab you from anywhere in a room. It's just like, it's so kind of dramatic that you can't help but spend some time with it.
The one right behind now Kara. Yeah, this shirt behind you.
Yeah.
I was really pleased without knowing a great deal about this exhibition. I think that was members. But what really struck me is the different types of materials, right? The media that's being put out. And so, yeah, this one was really striking. Fabric, clothes, there's photography and also ink drawing, oil painting, acrylic collage. So I was really delightfully taken by the fact that there's lots of abstraction and just different types of media together.
Yeah, I want to also talk about Andrea's piece, which is behind the wall she just looked at. Because I think that's probably like the weirdest piece in here in terms of material, and like process too. And like we had a bunch of questions about it at the opening
Did you?
because no one could believe that you got it to be
Yeah,
reflective.
I love the way it's installed, by the way, because I just handed it over and I was dashing out of town, so it looks great. I like the way it's hidden behind the little wall.
That was a live decision,
Yeah,
which
I like it.
we really like the correlation between that piece and then Helga's piece in the middle.
This,
Yeah.
yes. Start thinking materials and earth materials, like right up front.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I guess it is a strange piece. I would love to hear some of the comments, so I'll talk to you and gather that info.
yeah.
Because it is the first time I've shown this piece sort of separate like that. It's not in context. I didn't do any writing or anything to submit with it. So it's really just a pure piece of anthracite kind of staring back at you. And that's, I just kind of want people to have that experience without necessarily having to read something about it first. But
Yeah.
it is important to me. I mean, in the end, when I continue to work with this material and present it in various ways, to do a little bit more exposition about my intentions and why I'm working with coal. Because, I mean, obviously it's very loaded, and, significant material. So, I'm getting to that. I had my exhibit here in 2021 talking about anthracite there. So the project continues, but the black mirrors are sort of the
Mine
next
were-
facet of
Oh, that's
maybe
your
a future
bag.
exhibition.
What I love about like kind of the difference between seeing that piece here now and how it was displayed several months ago is that it feels totally different. Having it kind of off of like a pedestal, off of
Right.
something that like felt more didactic and educational seen in that context is now this kind of like floating meteorite that feels extraterrestrial or something. And like for some reason bringing it up to eye level, putting it on the wall, really changed a lot for me. And then interacting with the reflection at eye level does a lot more for me in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's a brand new piece. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
And I think like for me, thinking about what we've recently been talking about, like since it's like the festival, I've been thinking about this a lot. Speaking of Mike, that we were talking about how you are thinking about like the elevation of material, like away from its use as like
Absolutely.
fuel, but like as like this like beautiful material that we should be like kind of like valuing for what it offers us in other ways. And I feel like you're getting to that with this
Yeah.
in a different way than like Bryant said, like on the pedestal in like an educational
Thank
setting
you.
where like,
Yeah, this goes straight to the matter.
Yeah.
Because it's such a miraculous surface. Once you understand that you're looking at a material that's 300 million years old and it was formed from ancient like matter. I mean, so I'm very pleased that you had that impression of, engaging with the material one-on-one. That's really good feedback.
yeah, and I think like where Liv chose it, like the placement is really good for that intimacy.
Yes.
Like, because if you just walk past it, I think on a wall, I don't know if people would pause, but because it surprises you, it's like, oh, and then you're like, me.
Exactly.
I like too how that almost has like a mirror image in it, the pole, and then there's almost like elements of every part of the show in each room. Like in here, there's that piece too, like that has like that kind of reflective quality to it, and then and in the center room, there's like that one, I think it's Rob Lideck's piece. It like looks carbony, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of cool how you, and even that one over there, like, I don't know, there's just so many different aspects of each room that you can pull from, but they all like work on their own as well. Good job.
I'm really interested in the stamps.
Yeah, that's a new member.
So I'll be looking up that person's work and see the larger context of this research, because that also gets into these sort of ontological conundrums of this thing. And it's definitely a theme that I'll be, that I'm already sort of looking into, but like what makes a thing real. And using the visual to communicate some truth. It kind of calls into question all of the, all the things that we see that may or may not be actually true. So, yeah, it's an important theme, I think, for visual artists to sort of reflect on. Art for me, I'm really want to get about the visual and the role of the visual in creating citizens and informed communities. And we all are like really at the front lines of that work. So, doing here, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Da Vinci, so I'm just sort of this, like-minded people.
Yeah.
Stand to like 5 feet or less of my.
Okay.
Well, my standard is very-
Okay.
I'm wondering, is
Well,
it this, the pattern needs to be changed?
No, we've got it there, so it's like touching everything in a 360 radius.
I have the gain all the way up.
Well, I will enunciate. So for context, that stamp piece that Andrew was talking about, you remember Benjamin, who makes this like ephemera of histories that aren't real, and so it's very kind of science fiction, alternate, histories, and uses that to create objects and ephemera that would in otherwise kind of endorse legitimacy, but instead it endorses a fantasy. And thinking about our own relationship to that truth and that history and the things that we consume every day that hopefully are true, but might not necessarily always be. It's a very wonderful exercise
Yeah.
that you pointed out.
There's a museum in LA called the Museum of Jurassic Technology,
Oh, I love that place.
and that's exactly what the whole museum is about. They create exhibits that you don't know if they're real or if they've been made up, and they have things where you're supposed to push a button, and sometimes it doesn't work, and you're wondering whether it's just broken or it isn't just broken. And it's an amazing place, and you don't know exactly that intent. How you think, so if you go to LA.
Robert, sorry, can you stop before it's hard?
Sound police live.
You just want like hold the mic when you speak. So like,
I was right, I thought it was 10 feet, right? No?
5.
Might be
3.
Yeah, you're a low talker.
I was just talking about the Museum of Jurassic Technology, which is a similar thing to the piece with the alternate facts.
Upstairs is easier because it's a smaller room and echo. One day when we get a lot of money, we will soundproof this room so there's no more echo. I apologize to everyone who always attends at home.
And maybe one day the masks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be helping.
No, those certainly don't help. But yeah, are there any other kind of works or combinations or perspectives that we can talk about here that are jumping out to anyone at home who may have been here in person or had came for the reception?
So Sarah has a comment. She said the artist Blanca Clayton may also be an interest to stamp artist.
Okay.
Wait, what was the artist name?
Blanca Clayton.
Oh, I don't think I know.
Could you write that down? Thank you.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, that's all I've got. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so how are we feeling now that this is our second curated member show? So we actually included almost the same amount of artists that we used to have in our salon style shows. And somehow it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, again, obviously, like the scale is the biggest thing. Well, pun not intended, for me to like really kind of change what the structure of the shows look like. But I feel like giving a little bit more leeway to these types of exhibition allows us and the team here to better accentuate successes that are already happening in all of your own studios. But I would love to kind of hear other feedback if this is a system that feels logical for all of you, or if there's any tweaks or feedback. We live to serve, that's all we kind of do here, so we're always open to constructive feedback of better ways to serve our community, and bring that to various votes and things like that.
Whether we were going to do anything with the upstairs exhibit, including driving Daniel's train.
Yeah, after we're done, probably talking here pretty soon, we're gonna go upstairs and start the whole process over and talk about that exhibition, yeah.
Yeah, we do floor by floor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we'll put the trains on.
You know, a couple comments. Kit said that they love the change. And Bill said, member shows were starting to look all the same. How are you making sure all members are included?
Something that you might be able not to see at home is that when you all submit to that artist catalog thing, well, there's that camera. Well, what that happens is that you give us this giant database of artwork that is incredibly helpful, and we have a sort of database system that manages all of that, so that I can keep entire track of what exhibitions that you were in with us, and when you were in it, and when I contacted you, and when tracking all of these different points of data, so that I can ensure that everyone has had an opportunity to be in a show if they want to be, and that's at least one. I think we're on track to get probably more than that for 90% of our artist members, especially if they check their email regularly.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest issue we've had is that like some artists submit work and then put it in other shows. So then when we contact them to be in a show, they don't have it. Which has worked out, like some people have given us different work that like still makes sense, but other artists are just like, well, because I'm not in the show.
Yeah, and I mean,
But at least
fine.
we tried, so.
Yeah, no, we'll get you next time. It's not that big a deal. It's more like, hey, well, guess what? I'm actually out of the country for the next 6 months. Oh, well, that's fine.
Yeah, and we still have an all members show in December.
Yeah, there's
So-
always another show that's just like a month or two away anyway. If we can't end up fitting someone in, we'll always just try again next time.
So messages in the chat, I'm loving it. Sorry, Bill, like, hold my computer.
So it's kind of hard to do that because there's a cord and people. So, and I'm saying this to Liv, but the camera is this way.
So Kit said, have you gotten feedback from members who have been in the show so far?
Yeah,
I
it's all
haven't
been
been
good.
here.
Yeah, it's been good. I haven't gotten any bad feedback other than people who haven't submitted to the catalog and then are mad they're not in the show. And then my response is submit to the catalog.
Yeah, rolling submissions, you can do it any time. There's no deadline, there's nothing needed. If you want to be in whatever the next exhibition, members exhibition that is coming up, you can do that whenever. If you have any questions about that, shoot us an email.
And then Sarah had a comment, saying employee levels of white space may change the all same effect. Through the exhibitions with relevant concepts may be different in how scale of works in space could be a number diversity can be generated. And then last comment from. Sorry, I'm not used to this. For Amy Stone, it would be great for the back of this gallery to be discussed a bit more.
Let's
Yeah.
Tether you so that you can do that.
Hi. Hi. Good to meet you too.
These feel like bandsaw
Yeah.
blades to me.
Well, and those are ceramic, the stones in the middle. I thought like, yeah, I thought that they were like sea urchins or something. I was like, this has to be natural, and then it's ceramic. The tech size.
Can we do that?
Everyone, join us in the back room.
Can do that. Zoom could be programmed better. We all know it.
Your dress looks so pretty.
You know what? Let's see now that we're in a smaller room and I'll gather in the circle if the microphone will work better.
Yeah, we got this powwow thing going on right now. Oh, I totally forgot. With these two combinations that I really loved is Arlene's and Sally's, two very different types of work really singing together, which is a lot of fun for me. And so we have like, I don't know if you can tell, but these kind of collages that feel like they're like roller coasters or something, with similar gestural moves in acrylic paint up here that have a really wonderful dialogue.
Brian, they are roller coasters.
I don't know. What did Annie want to talk about?
I think I heard her.
They're from Ocean City on the boardwalk.
Hmm?
East side.
Oh. Let's turn up the volume. All right. Arlene, do you want to say, I think I heard you speak a minute ago. Do you want to repeat that? I turned up the volume for you.
Oh, okay. I took individual photographs of roller coasters on the boardwalk in Ocean City, New Jersey, and then I rearranged them. So basically they're photo collages, and then I added a little bit of color. Well, actually the one with the orange, the first piece, that's part of another ride. That's what the orange look like.
Sorry, it was, for some reason, you're very quiet, but I know everybody in the Zoom here can hear you.
Oh, I know why. Your microphone is your audio or your.
Yeah, Brian, if you could just repeat what they were saying to everyone in the room, I think that would be a quick fix at the very least.
Yeah, I think Arlene was talking a bit about where this is coming from, which is of course our Jersey Shore here, where our wonderful amusement parks and happenings are all our nearest events for us. But let's see, do we fix it there, Sam?
No, it says real tough audio.
That should be. No, yeah. That's right.
Sorry for all the technical difficulties today, everyone. Usually we use
Really
my
no
laptop,
limits
but
to
we're
the amount of
testing out
ways
with
Zoom
Ryan,
mess
so
up.
it's maybe not the
Right.
greatest.
Caroline, give me a sound check for a second.
Hello?
Hey, okay, yes. All right. Sorry, so sorry, we got that figured out now. Could you tell us a little bit more about these roller coaster pieces?
Okay. I took individual photographs of pieces of a roller coaster, and then I collaged them. So they're actually photo collages. And this orange piece down there was a ride that was in the same vicinity. So I put that in there too. But I did a lot of cutout work.
So why did you add that orange piece? Did you just like feel that you really needed that contrast from the blue?
Yeah, I think it looks good. I'm very partial to orange. So I thought it looked good there. And that one seems to be, I did 3 pieces. One piece I sold, and this first one I won a prize for, and it seems to be the most popular one. This is the first one, and then the one next to it is the second one that I did. So I just, took different pieces. I don't know how many photographs. I took about 10, and I cut out pieces. So they're layered, especially the second one. It's a lot of layering and cutting out, sections.
Yeah, that must have taken a minute. What I love about them is like the material for all of those roller coaster parts are all very reflective, so you can very easily tell the light source, and somehow you've aligned all of the light sources so that they all feel like they're coming from above. And so this very kind of insane, illogical space, in terms of its lighting, makes complete sense. And I don't know how you've accomplished that, but well done.
Thank you. Takes me a long time to do these, a lot of detail.
Yeah. And I know we've got some new cyanotype pieces from Bill. Bill, are you hanging out here with us?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Oh, hey, Bill. And I know you've been really into cyanotype lately. How has that been going?
It's a work in progress. So I bought a bunch of chemicals about a year ago and just discovered they age. And so I was trying to do some new ones this week and they totally failed. So I have to buy more chemicals.
And can you tell us a bit about what cyanotype is, in case anyone isn't unfamiliar with the process?
Well, as an architect, I can tell you this is the same as a blueprint, which hasn't been used in the architectural world in 100 years. But it is a light sensitive, kind of a photographic process. Actually, it is photographic. It was discovered early in the development of photography. So it is coating a piece of paper or any surface. You can coat fabric or anything with a liquid that has light sensitive chemicals in it. And when they dry, then that surface can respond to light. And so you use different elements to block the light selectively to create the image. So where the light fully hits the paper, it turns blue, and where the light is blocked in some way, it stays white. So in my case, I've got, a number of years ago, I did a glass workshop down at Wheaton Arts, and I made a bunch of glass sculptures. So they're kind of like paperweights in a way. They're little slabs of glass that have texture on the bottom. They were sand cast. So the bottom of them have whatever texture I put in the bottom of the sand mold. And then I'm exposing the cyanotype paper through the glass sculpture. And because the glass has different, I won't say density, but the way the surface is either touching the paper or raised above the paper to different degrees because of the texture, it blocks or lets the light through in different ways. And so this is an image using a piece of cast glass as my negative for the light to go through.
Wow, I had no idea that's what was happening. That's wild.
I love a process.
I'm gonna plug really quick that Bill is teaching a workshop at Colombo Park on how to make cyanotypes on September 24th during World Cyanotype Day. I said World Collage Day. I always got collage on the brain, Annie. Yeah, so September 24th, World Cyanotype Day. If you're interested in doing a cyanotype, it's on our Eventbrite. You can sign up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How are we doing on time? Do we need to
I
head
think we should
upstairs?
shift upstairs.
Okay, I want to make sure that we have a even split between upstairs and downstairs. But before we do that, is there anything else that we want to talk about down here before we head upstairs? All right, okay, so everyone online, give us just a minute as we transport all of the tech upstairs,
Definitely muted.
And we will be right back. BRB, grab a snack.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So, where's our, there you go. Small room, but yes.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome to Transported. This is a three-person exhibition between Joanne Newfield, Daniel Newfield, and Nancy Gordon, in which we have lots of different images that all have the relation of transportation. And so some of that transportation is locomotive in nature, some of it is human powered, and some of it is actually examining kind of the way that insects even transport themselves around. So we have a lot of different perspectives and a lot of images all in here. So we have, of course, a very wide view of what that looks like in a lot of very different painting practices, whether they're small scale or very large scale, or even this really wonderful sculpture here that we have, which is our train set, which I actually just learned, who is Daniel's grandfather, where it originally came from. Is that right?
That's correct.
Oh, yeah. Ah, yes, there you are. You're somewhere in the room here.
Daniel said yes.
Well, very cool. I had no idea. That's so cool. Can you tell me a bit about that? Since I've been away. I had COVID last week. It was awful, but I'm back and saved here. So thank God for that. But Daniel, fill us in on what this train set is, where it came from, and tell us a bit about it.
Well, Brian, everyone, this vintage Lionel scale model train set was a collection that my mother's father originally built and owned. He left it to me when I was only 11 years old to add it on to another scale model train set that I have, LGB scale, in addition to the Lionel. Combine the two in a basement of where I grew up in the suburbs 40 minutes north of here in Bucks County. Now a few of the train cars you see there are from a couple of hobby shops, but most of it is what my grandfather originally owned and built. Now, as you see, there's a bridge, a firehouse, a few trees, a corral with a cattle car, Plasticville Station, and a few toy cars and trucks on that very desk that we turned into a very good and even and stable platform covered in the kind of grass that you would see set up for any other train set, or at least for a golf course, miniature golf course.
Well, a train would have a pretty easy time going through a golf course, so that tracks.
Mhm. The track layout that you see, I originally drew out the design myself on graph paper before putting the track pieces together myself, just to make sure it would all fit on that one small space.
Well, glad you did. This looks wonderful. And we also have our DVNA hot air balloon floating up ahead, which is fantastic.
Yes, I've always loved hot air balloons as much as I've always loved trains. When I was 14, my mother and I once flew in a hot air balloon ourselves with a pilot and a fourth passenger. The opportunity to ride a hot air balloon was actually part of a gift certificate that my aunt, my mother's sister, gave to me as a gift for my bar mitzvah. If you look up on the walls facing south and east, up top, you will see a couple of panoramic paintings that both my mother and I took. Both photographs that my mother took with a panoramic camera. That's mine. You see, you're zooming in on above the bike pieces. On the right side of that picture plane, you'll see part of the basket of the balloon that we were in. And if you turn your camera to your left, you'll see another painting that my mother did of another view that we got while soaring high up. You'll notice a number of differences and similarities between each of our styles.
Yeah, tell me about those, especially here because you're painting two very similar subjects. How do you think about your two kind of particular styles, and what's something that you really kind of try to accentuate in maybe your painting style that Joanne might do differently?
What was that again? I didn't hear you clearly enough.
Oh, sorry about that. Hello. I was wondering a little bit about those differences and similarities that you mentioned earlier about your painting style as it kind of differs from your mother's, and especially looking at these two pieces here, similar subjects from the hot air balloon. They're both very kind of similar and different in a lot of ways, and I was just wondering how you were thinking about those similarities and differences.
Well, considering the fact that we not only painted from a different photograph each, but our different choices of colors and values that you've noticed in each picture plane, a lot of different values of greens and browns and whites. Not to mention contrast in lights and shadows.
Absolutely.
He's my favorite student.
Oh, stop it, I'm blushing.
Annie had to go, but says what a great combination of works, fun theme, even with the more serious pieces. And Bill said, love the panoramas.
Oh, I was just gonna ask a question. How did the trio of artists and the theme come about?
Yeah, how do you, whoever wants to jump in, go for that.
I'll jump in, I'm Nancy Ward. Well, just way new here. But
Joanne and I live in the same high-rise building. And we're always together talking art. And Daniel also, he's around. So she's the one that mentioned this, and I had been doing my bikes and had a fascination of wings and wheels, hence the bugs. And she was saying she and Daniel have always had a fascination, especially with wheels. And so that's why we decided we'd get together, and we were very pleased that we were chosen to be able to do this show. Very honored to be here.
And so tell me about, especially these kind of different levels of abstraction that happen here. It seems like you're interested in abstraction, but you're also obviously interested in the subject matter that is, some of these bikes or wheels, and even the backgrounds, especially of some of these insect pieces. What's your kind of interest and your take on some of those pieces?
Well, on the 4 blue paintings of different incarnations of wheels, it all started with one. And I was having so much fun and I needed to continue. So I whipped out another canvas and then another, and finally a 4th. And it took me a long time to figure out how they all work together, or even if they did. But I do think that there is a symmetry to them. I love color. I love movement. So I think I managed to capture all of that in those 4. As far as the bugs are concerned, it all started with the dragonfly. The dragonfly was on my screen door, my balcony. So I took a picture of it. And so then I had to figure out how to make a screen door, or at least make it look like it was on the screen.
Yeah.
And then once I did that and I did the dragonfly, I said, so much fun. Surely there's other bugs that would like to be on my screen. So that's how they all came about. And I'm open to suggestions of bugs I may have missed. I mean, I did the lanternfly and everybody goes, ew, how could you? But it's such a beautiful bug.
Yeah.
I had to, but I am open to suggestions for other bugs.
Maybe one of the cicadas, or do they come like every 12 years or something? Those always have I love the translucent wings. They're always, I imagine, a really fun kind of subject to paint.
Okay, that'll be next.
Maybe a lightning bug too.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't think I've seen a lightning bug in years. It's still around.
I saw 1 or 2 this summer, not a lot.
Great idea. Thank you.
Well, I noticed that, I would imagine that some of the freedom of abstraction allows you to hone in on some of those things that you mentioned before, like some of that pure color, some of that kind of more evocative kind of movement, especially kind of making the feeling of these wheels activate as they kind of turn and relate that idea of motion in a static painting, and a palette knife and very kind of larger brush strokes. I could see how that would facilitate communicating some of those ideas, perhaps even more so, or maybe even just a different way than like a very structured realism of some of those subjects would.
I'm not good with structured realism. I'm dyslexic, so this is as realistic as you're going to get. But I love the movement. I love color. I feel joy when I paint, and I hope that comes through.
And you mentioned that you had this moment where you saw this dragonfly happen to be on your screen here. Do you find that the subject matter comes to you in these ways where you kind of suddenly hit by a moment of inspiration of observing an event happening in front of you. Yes, that's going to be a pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We went away, we got out of the city, I'm glad we did, for the 4th of July. And we went to a minor league baseball game. And Allentown has the Iron Pigs. I don't, that's one thing. Anyway, it's a joy to go. It's a family event. It was very patriotic. It was very inspiring. And at the end of the game, one of the players retired. So they had a lovely ceremony. And this little girl who was maybe 4 took an American flag, a small one, and ran all the bases.
That's very cute. And so that was a moment real.
That was the
That's
moment,
going to be a
and
painting.
that's what I was working on today.
Oh, cool. Well, we'd love to see it when it's done.
Okay.
All right. I want to hear from Joanne too. Do we have Joanne in the audience? We haven't heard from her yet.
Yeah, so Daniel and Joanne both said something in the chat.
Oh, great.
Joanne said, "Can viewers tell the difference?"
Your own rule.
I know, I'm breaking it. Can the viewers tell the difference between Daniel's style and mine? I tend to zoom in more towards abstraction. And then I'm gonna add in here, Daniel was asking if anyone else had any other questions about his work or his mother's that we haven't touched on yet.
Oh yeah, I for one can absolutely kind of tell the difference of this like very intense zooming in. So for those who haven't had a chance to look at the labels, a lot of these images that are really kind of closely focused on a particular element of a vehicle or whatever it might be. Often a lot of kind of like reflections and light and shadow tend to be part of the subject here. That's going to be a Joanne piece. Whereas works that have a little bit more zoomed out or a little bit more informational in terms of the entire scene might just be a Daniel piece. But I guess I have one question for Joanne then is, where does that zooming in come from? Where does this interest in like chrome and glass and highly reflective surfaces, where does that come from? And how has that held your interest here?
I think that I've always been attracted to finding beautiful things where you don't expect it, such as those shiny mirrors and the reflections. And really just finding something beautiful that it's not, I don't usually think of motorcycles as being gorgeous, but I guess I like good design. And those old cars, they're just classics. I love the shapes and the forms.
Yeah, I remember in school, whenever my favorite and the most challenging activities was any sort of like still life or like life drawing or life painting that was like involved glass or highly reflective surfaces. It was always the hardest thing in the world, but if you did it right or you see someone do it right, it was just like, it knocks your socks off. It's so good and it's like so satisfying to see or just like translate those very technically challenging maneuvers rendered in paint. For me, resonates a lot. Oh, and also we have your book. And so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about this. So Joanne, what is We Are Trains?
Well, when the boys were little, so I wrote these three books actually. I only brought this one because it went with the theme. But I wrote them 35 years ago and I was trying to get a publisher and I couldn't get a publisher. So I figured nowadays you could do it yourself. And I still couldn't get a publisher. So I did it myself. I had it published during the pandemic. And I guess I know what I liked as a parent. I wanted something light and easy to for parents to be able to carry in a diaper bag And I wanted to encourage kids to be observant. So at the very back of the book, it's all the things that you could see that could look like train tracks, things that could remind you. But it's really about two very creative boys that saw everything was trains. No matter what they did, they turned it into a train, and they couldn't be stopped by a little girl that said, "You're just little boys, you're not trains." So I wrote two sweet books when my boys were sweet. And then the older one turned into a adolescent, and he got a little snarky. So I'll have to bring Brian that one in for you. He would say really outrageous, obnoxious things that I would write down. And I thought that would help people during the pandemic to write down what your kids say, document it, make sure it's accurate. And then I illustrated the wicked things he said. But this was still, you're in the cute, sweet stage. In fact, if you, well, you could see a lot of the things are sort of old fashioned.
And you said you self-published this very recently, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh.
And so look, on the back, I had on each of the books, I put another picture of us. So look, my hair was brown. And that's little one on my lap is Daniel.
So Daniel, how do you feel about being one half of the inspiration to this book?
I guess you can say totally flattered, blown away.
Good to hear.
Don't remember seeing those illustrations, but what the hey.
Unfortunately, that's the only thing I sold so far.
Still got some time, don't worry.
Don't worry, we have until the 20th.
Okay.
Like, as I'm looking around the room, I'm realizing how many mediums there are. It seems like there's watercolor and wash and pastel, and I don't know if it's oil or acrylic, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about mediums and what that does to your practice, or how that translates in this work.
When we travel, yes, when we travel, you can't bring our oil paints. So watercolor is usually the medium of choice. I love paint sticks, the oil paint sticks, and I like water-based oil paints when I'm home. Daniel, around the corner near the bathroom, Daniel has one of his prints. So
It's a print of the New York subway train right above the bathroom doorway.
and then I think the other one is a paint stick one, the one of the last stop, the bus. So we've got buses, motorcycles. You know, I sent out invitations to car enthusiasts, train enthusiasts, motorcycle shops. I sent it to
Bike shops.
Bike shops. I don't know if anybody came. But Daniel was running his trains for all the people that joined us on our opening.
Yeah, I heard that one was a lot of fun. I don't know, when's the Philly Auto Show?
Philly Auto Show is usually in like February or March.
Oh, next time around, we'll align them, maybe. Yeah, I mean, a lot of questions here, but one of them that's coming to mind is, you know, after having an exhibition here, I'm wondering kind of what's next. Has having several pieces up on the wall here made you think differently at all about your artistic practice, or something that you take back to the studio and might do differently, or might, kind of change the way that you're thinking about, what you do when you're creating this work? Or is it just kind of reaffirm that this stuff is kind of getting out there and having other people see it is just kind of a good experience?
I'm very nervous about doing this show because this was the first time that my paintings have ever been in a show that hasn't been like a student or a group exhibit where you're one of a large number. And I didn't realize how it would affect me, but I really felt naked. And I'm very glad I did it. I'm glad to see it's been hung beautifully. Everything is in its right place. I couldn't believe how you managed with all these pieces to get everything up on the walls and have it look right. And we'll probably do it again, but it really amazed me at how I felt. I didn't expect that emotion.
Yeah, it's always, for me, it was a very different experience. I spent so much time with like my paintings in, my dungeon of a basement, making them and fussing over them, but seeing them outside of that, outside of my studio, is an entirely transformative experience. And it's like I'm looking at something brand new for the first time, seeing it in, its right context.
And also seeing what other people are seeing. And for some of them, you go, oh, good, I'm glad they're seeing this. And for other things, you're saying, oh my God, what was I thinking? And I won't tell you which is which.
Oh, no. Cool. Everything looks wonderful here that I can tell. So, Daniel, Adrian, how have you been thinking about having this show kind of up and completed in its kind of final form? Has it been something that did it go the way that you thought it would? Is there anything you would do differently? Are you feeling similar to Nancy about getting this work kind of out there, feeling maybe a little bit vulnerable about it?
I guess I agree that it is transformative when you do it in your own studio and then you see it presented to other people. But to me, what did my one teacher said? It's just fingernail clippings. And it's just a little piece of you. I like to see people's reaction to this piece. But I really, Brian, I don't want to put them back in the car and bring them back to my 2-bedroom apartment.
I don't want to bring a lot back to my place either.
Well, it's great to get them up here.
I was amazed that they fit it all in. I really was amazed that they fit it all in. They did magic. That's Sam, Liz, and Jesse.
Kudos to Sam and Liv. I somehow I missed the process, so excuse my absence there, but they did wonderful. You were in good hands.
Actually, Liv, do you want to talk a bit about how you approached this round?
Yeah, lucky for us, there were quite a few pieces that like balanced each other, or like series of pieces. For instance, Nancy's like bugs, the bees and the butterflies, and having like the weight be on either side of the room was definitely a big help for laying it out. We obviously have larger works on the larger walls, really anchoring the room, but having pieces that like jump across and have these tiny little moments, similar to looking out a window when you're moving in a vehicle. It was nice to have them speak to all of down on paper first, or do you just draw out? We actually laid it all out on the floor for where we could fit it. Obviously, these two, we didn't put down some to block the whole floor, but we kind of took it like wall by wall, and saw what looked good together, and then figuring out like some of the other hanging systems, like these three or the three over there, just figuring out how to like actually get it on the wall. What worked and what didn't work.
I really love how you made this decision to kind of integrate, all three of the artists throughout the space. So I have a lot of really wonderful moments of smaller combinations, really like kind of admiring like the macro situations of 3 or 4 pieces next to each other, really having their own dialogue or opportunity to compare and contrast what's happening there. But then also being able to bounce around the room and balancing pieces that are not on the same wall, but actually speak to each other, and causes me, the viewer, to kind of transport, my body around the room in an otherwise different way, and able to kind of experience a painting how it needs to be experienced. I really need to back up from these big pieces here, because they're larger than life for me, or I really need to zoom in to see all the details happening in the distance of some of Daniel's paintings, or admiring some of the detail work and the kind of specificity of some of the insects that I want to get really close to. Of course, kind of leaning over the trains and wondering about how all this process works. It really requires you kind of investigating everything in a bit of a different way, and there's just a lot to look at. So it's a very fun show for me.
Yeah. I think it was important to mix all three artists together instead of breaking them up individually, because they just have so much that they're like touching on the same thing, but in very neat different ways. And having them be locked off just by themselves, you want to be able to see some things when comparing them to other pieces. Get that oneness in the show.
I'm sorry you missed the music. It was all transportation music.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. A song list that I thought up myself and wrote down.
Do the locomotive.
Yeah, Sam's got, I totally forgot, I set up the sound system. It's like hidden under here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we'll turn that back on when Sam gets that. Oh, one other question that I have is, tell me about this Shapes blue car that's like driving into the exhibition. How did that? Why did that went through me? I didn't know that was coming.
Oh, I had a moment there. I was cutting everything out. You should see the squirrely way it's hung in the back. But I don't know how the girl got it so it stayed flat. But I really just wanted a piece of it. I didn't want anything in the background. And I liked how she used it. I thought that's just what I would have done. Have it drive right in.
It's alive. It's wonderful. I'm
Pretty
glad
funny.
that you did that. Maybe, I'd be interested to see if you kind of continue that practice of like almost thinking about like a shaped painting.
I've done it to seashells, shoes. I have them. I'm on a roll, cutting them all out.
Yeah,
Certainly were on a roll, judging by those wheels. You were on a roll with them.
well, I mean, it's so different than these kind of rectangular paintings here, where the rectangle is a subset of a much larger, object. I know that I'm seeing only part of the image, but when you give me all of it in the form of the hood of this yellow car, it's a totally different painting. It's a completely different equation for how to approach similar subjects. But there's definitely a lot there to investigate.
Brian, I have a question for the artists. Have any of you been to the Air and Space Museum in Washington?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
It's funny, I was just thinking, I took a gazillion pictures of all those planes, and one of these days I'm gonna do a collage of them. Would be interesting to have you do paintings that would stand next to my collages.
Yeah.
The one that I did of the airplane to the left of the Thunderbird, that was from NOLA in New Orleans. They have World War II museum,
World War II History
and
Museum.
they're all hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah.
What about Canada?
Yeah, there's an Air and Space Museum in, where was it? In Ottawa also.
Ah,
In
They're not-
Iowa?
Exciting.
Yeah,
Ottawa, not Iowa.
no, Ottawa, Canada.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Ottawa. Oh, Ottawa.
It's very
And
exciting.
they're not hanging, I don't think they're hanging from the ceiling. They're on the ground.
Oh,
It's also a helicopter
Ended.
museum in Westchester. They're also sitting on the ground. It's not as exciting, but they have some movies in there.
Well, there's even, since I know that you probably saw it too, in your time in Rome, did you happen to come across the subset of futurist paintings called Era Pictura in some of the museums?
Yes, but my memory is not here right now.
So in the 1920s and teens, Italian futurists were very interested in painting the products of industry and abstract them to personify ideas of speed and machinery and forward physical momentum in terms of industry that was a stand-in for forward, in their minds, progressive political motion. But it was also the time where airplanes started to become, in some cases, Zeppelins and other balloon flying devices became more commonplace. And so the Italian futurists were fascinated with those subjects, and they would often go up in these flying machines and paint what they saw. And so there's a really wonderful collection of paintings around Rome that are of these aeropicturas of like wonderful abstract rolling hills. And there's just a lot of emotion and color in all of them as personified by the like Umbrian landscape that's like the kind of breadbasket around the kind of central Italian region. But they're beautiful paintings and like interesting because they completely don't feel like the overtly political fascist futurist paintings, but these are the very almost picturesque versions of that same idea. Very strange, very beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, you can't have a painting without Mussolini's head in it, so.
Joanne said, thank you, Sam, Liv, Jesse, Jess, Ronnie, and Brian. This was fun and rewarding experience. Thank you, Joanne.
Thanks,
Joanne. All right, is there any other kind of thoughts, questions, comments lingering out there before we probably wrap up for the evening?
I love this exhibit, Brian.
Wonderful, I'm very glad to hear that. Excellent. And thank you everybody who's here online, anyone who's here in person, and of course, our three amazing artists to make this fully come together. It's been a really wonderful exhibition that I'm so glad that we did. Thank you very much, everyone online. What else do we have to plug? We have a fundraiser coming up next Saturday that we would love to see you at, called Under the Stars, in which we'll be celebrating the 90th year of Da Vinci Art Alliance and
debuting the very first episode of a documentary series that Liv has been crafting for quite some time, and so it's going to be a really wonderful experience of seeing that for the first time on the big screen, which is a projector out in Colombo Park. So we'll roll out the red carpet if we find one by then, otherwise we'll have a lot of other wonderful decorations.
Also, on Friday, we have a mosaics workshop. It's this month's craft lab that is going to be run by Cindy,
Cool.
Covenant, thank you. I was trying to remember if it was Covat or Covenant, but the N is in there.
Yeah, there's that.
It was a really talented muralist and very talented mosaic artist, and they will be running that. Additionally, on Sunday, we have Notes of Connection, which is our letter writing event. The theme of this month is letters to elected officials. So if anybody wants to come around and write angry letters to the government, we got 2 hours to do it. That is going to be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Sunday. And so many
I mean,
events.
that's overloaded. Those are the.
Yeah,
those are the-
those are the immediate ones.
Okay.
But
All
definitely
right.
check out the events page. There's a ton of stuff on there.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah. Stay angry.
Upstairs or downstairs?
Sorry, say it again.
The chairs.